What's up, guys? This is $2. Once again, you guys have come through for me greatly on my previous video. In fact, you guys came right on me with almost 3,500 thumbs up, so thanks for that. I truly have rarely seen this kind of fan support on anyone's channel, so I am very grateful to have such amazing fans. Just kidding, I hate all of you very deeply. Anyway, this is going to be a continuation of my previous commentary about friendship. Probably the most feel-good commentary I've ever done, and this is going to be a less feel-good commentary than that one. It's going to be more of a tragedy, but nobody dies, so you guys can rest easy on that. Let me just cut the BS and get to a specific friend that I had in middle school. He was actually a year older than me, and we kind of just became friends because we both went on the same bus and we lived in the same neighborhood. Now, the place that me and this guy lived was actually kind of far away from the school itself that we went to. It's like an isolated area in the school district, so for me to get to other people's houses, it usually took at least a 10 or 15 minute bike ride. But this guy was closer, and there were a couple other kids in our neighborhood, so we kind of just hung out a lot, basically due to convenience. Now, this kid and I, let's just give him an arbitrary name. Just going to go on yahoo.com and pick out the first name I see. Alright, I see a picture of David Beckham, so let's just call him David. So David and I kind of just eased into a friendship pretty naturally. You know, we went on the bus together, and I guess one day he was just like, you want to come over to my house a bit? Got dropped off at his house, and we hung out. I mean, there really wasn't anything about him or anything about me that made us, have to become friends. We didn't both share a hobby or anything. Maybe if we were both, super addicted to Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I could have understood why we were friends so quickly. But I think it was mainly just because there weren't that many other kids around. Kind of like when you're in a small town, you only know maybe 10 girls your age when you grow up, and you just marry one of them. Whereas in a big city, there's so many women that you often find it a bit harder to pick out the one you like because there's so many choices. And he was actually pretty enjoyable to hang out with. He liked my jokes and stuff, and we would just do your usual, 12 or 13-year-old boy things, finger each other in the anus, experiment with a plunger, etc. But we also did play video games. So, overall it was a good time. And after a month of being friends with him, we were hanging out every day after school, either going on his PS2 or just going outside and playing catch. And even over the weekend, he would sometimes invite me over to his house for a sleepover or something. So we pretty much hung around each other every day. And at the time, I was just a little kid, so I didn't see that me and him were actually kind of going different ways in life. He was always telling me that his highest aspirations were to become a car mechanic right after he got out of high school. And, I was just a 12-year-old kid. I didn't really think much into it. And at the time, I was either aspiring to be a lawyer or a doctor. So I should have known that eventually my parents wanted me to hang out with him less, not because he was a bad kid or anything, but because I wasn't getting much homework done. I would be going to his house every day and sometimes even eating dinner there, not coming home until 7 or 8, and just being butt pirated by homework. Simultaneously, I was getting a bit bored hanging out with him every day. I did have my own agenda to get to, beating off. So I didn't really mind it when my parents were just start coming home after school. And it is around the time that I got my first dog as well, so I wanted to play with my puppy. So a couple times after school, when he would basically assume that I would be going to his house, I would just be like, oh, I'm going home, got some stuff to do. And that's when he started acting up a little bit. And looking back, I can see why. He didn't really have an easy life. His parents were divorced, and he had a sister who was absolutely smoking hot. She would sometimes be around the house, sometimes taking a shower and walking out in a bathrobe and stuff, and I would just be like, oh, hot damn, white girl! But that's beside the point. His mom had to raise him and his sister, who was in some grade in high school. So it was pretty difficult for her, and I don't think she made a huge salary. They actually lived in a pretty small apartment. And since me and were in the same grade, I didn't know that he was kind of an outcast in his own grade. So he didn't really have many friends. I was basically his only friend. And I had the fortune of actually having other friends, so I didn't really feel pained or anything when I started breaking away from him. I'm just speculating here, but to him, maybe it was like he was losing one of the only friends that he had. So, understandably, he tried very hard to cling on, I guess. After maybe a week of me not really hanging out with him, he would just, come to my house and ring on my doorbell and tell me to go over to his house. One time I actually did let him in, and we kind of just went on my computer for a while, but I told him that I really had to get to some homework and to practice my musical instrument, and he got extremely offended. He didn't want to leave. I did get him out of the door, and I closed the door on him, and that's when he got extremely pissed off at me. He told me he was going to hack my account in this online game that we both played. It was actually called Dark Throne. I think it's still up. I'm not sure if any of you have tried it before, but he had the password to my account, so he told me he was going to fuck my shit up. Obviously, right after that, I got on the internet right away. We had dial-up, so there was a couple minutes of panic, but I was able to save my account. It's okay. But it was kind of when everything just fell apart. I mean, it's hard to be friends with someone anymore after they threaten to hack your account on an internet game. That's almost worse than him doing my imaginary girlfriend. Like, it's quite offensive if someone threatens to do that. And I would have honestly been fine if we just never talked again, but our immense liking for each other eventually turned into hatred. We still went on the same bus every day, and without really talking to each other, we just split up on the bus. He sat near the front, and I sat near the back. And since he was in an older grade than most of the other kids on the bus, he kind of liked to pick on them, basically, every day. And for some reason, on one day, I decided to stand up for one of the kids. David was shoving him around a little bit in his seat, and I said, "Hey, David, why don't you go back to where you belong, under the bus?" For some reason, I remember that moment quite clearly. David looked extremely pissed and stormed into the back of the bus, and we got into a bit of a skirmish, but we both weren't exactly MMA fighters, so neither of us got like a bloody nose or anything. We kind of just wrestled around until the bus driver told us pretty sternly to knock it off, and he was a fairly large man, so reluctantly Adam pulled away from me, and he told me he was going to beat me up one day. And I would describe myself as a pretty pacifist person. I don't really want to get into fights with anyone if I don't have to. Unless someone was trying to get to my Kung Pao chicken or anything, I'm just going to leave them alone. So things got to a place where I didn't really want to be in that situation. I took the pussy way out. I started getting rides home from my dad after school. And the next year, David moved up to high school, so we didn't really see each other anymore. I still saw him here and there in the neighborhood, but we didn't talk anymore, and our friendship completely deteriorated by then. And by the time next year rolled around, he wasn't even in the school anymore. I guess he either dropped out or moved or something, but I have no idea where he is. So I guess the moral of that story is you really have to be careful who you make friends with. I mean, I'm not sure if the best thing to do at the time was just to have never made friends with him to begin with. But there was really no way I could have seen that things would have worked out between him and I. We were ultimately very different people. And I don't know how I can put this not so harshly, but I wasn't going to end up like him. I was going to finish my high school education, which I am doing now, and head off into college. And if I had kept hanging out with him all the time, might not have turned out that way for me. Maybe I would be doing drugs right now or something. On the other hand, it was really a time in David's life where he needed a friend. And for at least a month or two, I was able to provide him some companionship. So while I don't think I really made a mistake in this story, I think there is something to learn from this. When you truly make friends with someone, the person you make a friend with is someone that you're going to be opening up to. Someone that's probably going to learn some of your secrets. Someone that's going to know how you feel about many subjects. Know who you truly are as a person. And you have to be careful of who you let into your life like that. Whether it be a friend of the same sex, if you're straight, aka a non-sexual relationship. If you still don't get it, let me spell it out further. A friend who you do not want to touch genitals with. And this, obviously also applies to female friends. You have to be careful who you enter a relationship with. You don't want to just dive right into the first girl you meet. Aside from the obvious sexual puns, I am being quite serious. Often, if you let the wrong person into your life, things are going to turn very sour when the relationship doesn't work out. This may sound painful for kids, but as you grow older, these are the decisions that you'll have to make. So just giving you a fair warning on that. In the end, despite our differences in our future aspirations, he was a kid who was failing most of his classes. I was a kid who had some very high aspirations when I grew up. And in the end, today, looking back, I hope it, could have worked out semi-well. And sometimes in life, that's the way things go, and you'll just have to accept it for what it is. In Stand By Me, a great movie of the 80s, I believe, one of the quotes in there is, friends come and go like busboys in a restaurant. You can't expect every person you meet to be your friend for life, but sometimes even the people you meet for only a brief few months or weeks, or even someone you see it at a bus stop for 10 minutes, can have an enormous impact on you. So it looks like I've just added another moral to this commentary within the last minute, which is going to be completely contradictory to my previous moral, making you have to find the balance between the two. One is that you have to be cautious about the people you meet. The other is don't really worry about it. Enjoy the time you have with the people that you have limited time with. Don't think too much about it in the future. Sometimes you might enter into a male-female relationship that you know is never going to end up in, 10 children. But maybe it'll still be a fun ride, so you'll just do it anyways. And that type of adventurous feeling can lead to some great moments that you might not have lived otherwise if you were being too cautious, which is what I've been telling you to do this whole commentary. In life, you'll just have to find the balance between these things and between many other things, and that's why some decisions are very hard to make. So hopefully this commentary will help you in your future life. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you guys can get me to 2,500 on this video. I'll post another one in 3 days. That's about it, and I'll see y'all later.